All right, today we're going to talk about the calculator skills necessary for the AP Calc exam. We haven't used the calculator all year, so I know you've been waiting to use the calculator. Some of this stuff you're going to be very familiar with because we did it in pre-calc and Algebra 2, and some of it's going to be brand new to you, okay? Some things may be a little bit different because my calculator has the updated software. But for those of you who don't have the updated software, I can update your calculators when I get back to class. Okay, for now, either just use mine or I'll give you some tips of what to do if you don't have the updated software. So the things you already should know is how to find the zeros of a function, how to find the minimums and maximums of a graph algebraic or graphically, how to find intersection points of two graphs. The things we're going to add to that list today are going to be how to graph the derivative on a calculator and use the graph to find max and mins of f of x, how to find the derivative at a point on the calculator, how to integrate on the calculator, and how to store values a and b after finding intersection points. So we're going to go right through this worksheet here that you should all have and follow along with me. All right, so we're going to start off with f of x equals 4 plus sine of pi x, and g of x equals x squared minus 4x. All right. First question is find the zeros of f of x and g of x using the calculator. So in order to do that, we have to first go to our calculator. If you have anything in there, you may want to go ahead and clear it. Second plus sign 712. And what I'm going to do is put those into my y equals. So I'm going to hit y equals. And in there, I'm going to put 4 plus sine of pi x. Now remember, dealing with trig functions, we have to be in radians in order to graph it. If you cleared your memory, you will already be in radians. y2, I'm going to go ahead and put x squared minus 4x. Okay, then I'm going to hit graph. Now this is going to automatically give you a value in window from -10 to 10 and -10 to 10. Now if we look at this, f of x had no zeros. Okay, so there's no zeros. F of x has no real zeros. And g of x, we can go ahead and find those using the calculator. So in order to do that, we're going to do second trace. That takes us to our calc menu. And we're going to do 0. All right, so I'm going to go down to 2. Now what I'm going to look for is, right now y1 is highlighted, so I'm going to go to y2, so I'm going to go down. That puts me at y2. And I've got to go left of one of those zeros. So here's my 0. I can see that crossing the x-axis. I'm going to go to the left, hit enter. And then I'm going to go to the right of that and hit enter. It's going to tell me to guess because it likes to play games. And then we're going to hit enter one more time. And it tells me one of my zeros is actually 0. Which hopefully you figured that out already. So g of x, our first one is going to be 0, 0. And let's find our other one. Second trace again, 0. Again, see that they put us on y1, so I got to go down to y2. And I want to go to the left of our 0 here, so I hit enter. And then to the right, hit enter. Doesn't matter how far close you do as long as you're left and right of that 0. Hit enter one more time to get right past the guess, and we're at 4, 0. Okay, that should be a review. Okay, now it says for our next question, find the minimum of g of x using the calculator. So you have this already set up. So what we're going to do now is second trace. And we can go down to minimum. And again, it's going to ask us for left bound. Now you see the minimum right here. We got to go down to make sure that y2 is selected. And it says left bound. So we're going to go to the left of that minimum, hit enter, and then go to the right of that minimum, hit enter, guess again, hit enter again. And here we get our minimum is going to be y equals -4 at x equals 2.000. Now, yes, most of you are thinking that's 2, and it is. But with the AP Calc exam, everything has to be rounded to 3 decimal places. If you do not put 3 decimal places, it is wrong. So whenever you're using the calculator, that's the number one thing you got to make sure that you do is put 3 decimal places with everything. So if you get a decimal somewhere, put 3 decimal places. Okay. Now what we're going to do is actually find the intersection points, and then we're going to store these points as A and B using the calculator. Now this is a new topic, the whole storing, so follow along closely. All right, first thing we're going to do is find the intersection. Now this is something you've done before. Again, we're going to do second, trace, and intersect. So we're going to go down to 5. Once you hit 5, or hit enter after you hit 5, all you need to do is make sure that you are close to one of those intersections. And I'm going to go ahead and hit enter 3 times. 1, 2, 3. This gives me my intersection at negative 0.673, comma, 3.144. Now I'm more interested in the x value. The x value is the most important value for this. And so what I'm going to actually do before I hit anything else is store this as A in my calculator. And in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and hit second, quit. And at the bottom, there's a button that says STO. All right, you've never used this button. We're going to hit store, which gives an answer at the top. And I'm going to say store alpha A. So your calculator should look like that. And when I hit enter, it tells me exactly what that value was that I just found as my intersection. Okay, and it's not rounded either, so it's going to be more exact, which is good. Now from here on out, until I change that, every time I put A in my calculator, it's going to be stored as that value. Let's do the same thing with the other intersection. Go back to your graph, and we're going to do second trace, intersect, and we're going to go to the second intersection. Okay, hit enter 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And we get our next intersection is going to be 4.888, comma, 4.343. Again, the most important one is that x value. So before I hit anything else, I'm going to hit second quit. I'm going to go back to that store button at the bottom. So I'm going to hit store, and then I'm going to hit alpha B, and I hit enter. That stores at 4.888 as B now. So these are very important values. These are what we're going to use for integration. These are what we're going to use for a couple of different things throughout the next couple of problems. Okay, so we have A is that negative 0.673, and B is going to be that 4.888. All right, so again, just to review, find the intersection points. And the way that we find the intersection points, we do second, trace, go down to intersection, get close to the intersection, hit enter 3 times. Then to store it before you do anything else, hit second mode, which is quit. And then you're going to hit the store button and alpha, A or B or whatever letter you need, and then hit enter. Okay, and that will store those out there. All right, so now we've learned how to store. Now what we're going to do is figure out the area of the region bounded by f of x and g of x in the calculator. All right, well, how do you find area? Area is an integral. And so area we know is going to be the integral. These are the intersection values of x, so this is a to b. And since we labeled it as a equals and b equals here, we can put a and b here. And on the AP exam, if you've labeled a and b, then you can actually put these values in here. And what we're going to do is top minus bottom. Well, if you look at our graph again, you can see that the top function is actually going to be f of x. So f of x minus g of x. And we're doing this in terms of dx. Well, that'd be a pain to try and do by hand, so we're actually going to use the calculator. And this is the great thing about this. Quit out of here. If you go to the math button and go all the way down to FNINT, that's a finite integral. Hit enter. In my calculators, it's going to look like this. In your calculators, it may not look like this. We are going to actually be able to just put the upper and lower bound. So I can put alpha A as my lower bound, alpha B as my upper bound. Now here, we're not going to put f of x and g of x. We put those in y1 and y2. So I actually can go on my calculator, if I hit alpha trace, a little menu pops up and I can do y1 minus alpha trace y2. Okay, and then here with the x, I'm going to put the x key there. Okay, now if you do not have an updated one, it's going to look a little different and you won't be able to do alpha trace. You actually have to do vars, which is right there, over function and y1 and select them like this. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to this. Everything's set up. All I have to do is hit enter. Takes a little bit, and there is my answer for my area. And so for this, the area is going to equal 30.227. Okay, now you always want to make sure you write down what you have done when you get to the AP exam. So I have this down. Now if I wanted to, somewhere I could have put on my paper that y1 was equal to f of x and y2 was equal to g of x, and I can actually put that on there. A to b, y1 minus y2 dx. Now, personally, I would always use f of x and d of x. If you have the old format, instead of the integral sign, you will actually get FNINT pop up with a parenthesis. What you can do is y1 minus y2, comma, and the comma button is going to be right there above the number 7. And then you go ahead and put x, because you're integrating in terms of x, and then you put your upper bound, or your lower bound, and then your upper bound. And if you hit enter, that should work as well. Okay, so a couple things you can try. Now let's go down to number 5. 5, we are going to graph the derivative of f of x on the interval of -2 to 2, and use the graph to find the x values where f of x has a relative maximum. All right, so what I'm going to do, we don't even need g of x anymore. So I'm going to go to my y equals. I'm going to get rid of g of x by clearing that out. I'm going to keep y1. What I can actually do in order to graph the derivative, rather than take the derivative, is if I go back to that math button that we just were at, number 8 is nderiv. That's for finding the derivative. I hit enter, and you see it takes me to my derivative. Now I'm differentiating in terms of x, so I'm going to put x. I want to take the derivative of y1, so I can go alpha, trace again, y1, And in this box here, this is either where you put a point that you're trying to find the derivative at a point, or you put x if you want to find all x values. And you notice if I hit graph, here's my original y1 I have. And then the next one that graphs is actually going to be the derivative of that graph. It will work a little slower because the calculator is doing a little thinking. All right, so there I have the derivative graphed by using the nderiv function in my calculator. Now I want to go ahead and use the graph to find the x values where it has a minimum. So what I'm going to do is go back to my y equals. If you put the cursor on the equal sign and hit enter, it turns off that graph. So now I don't have to even look at that one. I just want to look at my derivative of that. Now you want to make sure you don't clear it, because if you clear it, then you don't have a y1 for it to take the derivative of. They also told me my window should be -2 to 2. So I'm going to change my x's to -2 to 2. And I really don't need my y min and max that high, so I'm going to drop that down to -4 to 4. Okay? And really you can just play with that. I'm going to go ahead and use that one, and I'm going to graph. And I'll get a much better look. All right, so remember, we're looking for where do the x values where f of x has a relative maximum. Well, remember, relative maximums occur when the derivative changes from positive to negative. So if we look here, there's 2 times that this happens. It changes from positive to negative right here, and here it changes from positive to negative again. These would be negative to positive, and those would be relative minimums. So we just want to find the x values for the maximums, so we need to find the zeros again. So going back to what we did in the first question, we're going to do second trace, and I'm going to find the 0. And I'm going to go way over here. Remember, we got to go to the left, hit enter. Go to the right, hit enter, and then hit enter one more time. Our first value where there's a relative maximum is going to be at x equals -1.5. So x equals -1.5. And then our next one, we're going to do the same thing. Second trace, 0. And we're going to go over to that third 0 where it changes from positive to negative again. And I'm going to hit enter to the left, enter to the right, enter again. And we find that it's at x equals 0.5. Okay, so here are the 2 values where it's a maximum. If they ask a minimum, we could figure out that. We can also look at when is f of x increasing or decreasing. Well, remember, these are your intervals. Here's positive, it's increasing. This would be where it's negative, it's decreasing. This is positive, f of x would be increasing. The derivative's negative here, so f of x would be decreasing, and so on. And we could always find those values. Our last piece is find f prime of 2.2. Now, yes, you could take the derivative and do that, but that would take time. A couple things you could do. Now, our window is only 2, so we can't just trace and find 2 is. We find what 2 is, but what I can do is if I quit out of this, go back to my math button there, go down to number 8, nderiv. I can do x. We're using y1 again, so alpha trace is going to give me that pop-up window, y1, and I want to find out what is the derivative at 2.2. So I'm going to go ahead and put in 2.2, and what it's going to do is figure out exactly what my derivative is. And that is going to be f prime of 2.2 is going to equal 2.542. Okay, so for those of you who do not have the updated software, it's a little bit different. What you're going to have is nderiv pop up, and what you'll put is the equation, y1. We're taking the derivative in respect for x, and in this spot here, if you're going to find the actual derivative of a function, you're going to do x, and then close parenthesis. For this one, for number 6 here, you would do y1, x, and then 2.2. Close parenthesis, hit enter, and that should work for you as well. Okay, and that's really all there is to it. If you have the math type that I have, you'll have d over d, you'll have this box, gonna put x in there. You'll have parenthesis in this box. You're going to have y1, and you'll have this line, and you'll have x equals a box, and you put x there. Or if you're doing a number, you'd put 2.2 in. And that's about all we have. You can tell I'm doing this right during the bell change. All right, that is all the stuff you need to know about the calculator. And practice doing integrals, derivatives, finding the min and maxes. The storing is the biggest thing. That's a great piece that they will ask on the calculator portion. All right, we will continue to go over this when I get back. If you have any questions, you can put a question up on Edmodo, or wait till I get back and I'll answer it then. All right, good luck.